for practice, for example, we don't need Jets Pizza and Gemmons and all that stuff on the board,
Or
but,
on TV, or.
or the TV, correct, correct,
Right?
yeah.
I think the scoreboard looks wonderful, and I'm probably gonna be a minority voice. I do think it looks wonderful, but by the time you add the electrical on this, you're looking at close to $500,000.
It'll be more than that, yeah,
More
we
than-
initially
So-
projected 700,000 was the cost of the board.
I'm just, and I know it's being funded by the bond, but I would just wanna make sure that if there's not other projects that would take priority over this one, it looks nice, but to have to sell this to some community members, if we're going for another bond, to say that we have spent well over $500,000 on a display out at the stadium could be challenging potentially, I'm just saying. And I'll say, I'm sure I'm in the minority, but I'm just gonna bring it up.
That's a fair point.
I was gonna ask a similar question, but
It's
you said it much better.
All right. I just feel that and when people ask me, I have to feel that I can justify this cost, and I don't know if our computers are, if our technology is all where it needs to be. We have limited funds, and I know bonds are earmarked for certain things. I would just wanna make sure that when we look at a priority listing, that other needs would be, I would wanna make sure that they've been addressed in
So I-
order for me to sell this.
Yeah, I think the challenge is that because of the scope of the bond, we have to make sure we spend money on what is within the scope. So if it's outside of the scope, for example, we can't just say, is it a need? We have to say, does it fall within what the voters voted for? Athletic improvements was part of the scope of the bond. So, technology is also a large portion. That's why I think, we've tackled a substantial amount of technology issues outside of what was budgeted for technology. And we still have projects that we can fund. But if somebody were to say, hey, is that enough money to put in air conditioning? The answer would be, that's not part of the scope of the bond. So even if we wanted to, it would only fund 11 classrooms, but, the cost. And then it's still out of the scope of the bond. Everything that falls within the scope. However, I will also say that if Park Elementary didn't fall within the cost of what we did, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Same with the Early Childhood Center, same with the high school connection, or the gyms at Forest Grove and Bauer, and the classrooms at Bauer. If we didn't have that work completed yet, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The only reason we are is because we're to a point where we have a certain amount of time to spend our bond funds. And there are some projects that might be arguable to say they're a higher need, are well outside of the money we have left to do it, and then we'd be tapping, if you said, hey, we really need to put a turf field where soccer is, or baseball, you're talking $3.5 million. We don't have the $3.5 million, and if we did, we'd have to pull it out of sinking fund, if it was eligible, or operational funds. So trying to complete some of these projects prior to going back to our community and saying, what would you like us to do next? That's a whole different scope. So I 100% agree with what you're saying. I don't know of projects that would fall within this scope that weren't part of a plan.
I just wanna make sure that we all know that, so that when we're asked, we can clearly explain.
And I don't know if my answer answered that for you.
It does.
And it's part of our job to educate people again and again of the difference between bond money and operating funds, because at the time where there might be some changes in who we've hired and staffing.
Sure.
Again, we know, most of the staff knows, but Johnny's mom, who their favorite PBS person moved to a different building, might not know, and that I think is something that as board members, we need to continue to educate people on. Because as much as we'd like to say we could mesh it all together, we can't, and being reminded again, thank you Doug, that here's the scope that we have to follow, I think is where we're gonna have to try to talk to people and say, okay,
What was the total bond?
139.
139, okay. So this is like, what, 0.75 5%,
Point four.
point four.
It is a lot of money.
It is, and it's cheaper than what we,
Yes.
I mean, that's the crazy
It's all
part.
relative.
Yes,
Um, When we talked about this 2 years ago,
Yeah.
it was
Like
more expensive, I don't know why, yeah.
Yes,
So would you like to prepare a final bid for the position?
I support that.
Yes. We'll get that finalized for the next
regular meeting?
regular meeting. And I probably will have conversations starting with our athletic department about moving forward.
Yeah, and making sure, again, I mean, there's somebody I know that will know a lot about this stuff, but making sure that they feel comfortable with the support they've received so far at the football field for the existing stuff.
Yeah, so that's twofold too.
Keep it out for a little bit while longer, too, that's part of the deal, right?
That is, is it out, Ken?
Is the car spot out?
Yeah.
No.
You're trying to turn it off so it didn't burn, is that what you're doing?
Well, yeah, no.
It turned off a little bit.
Then I realized where I was going.
Okay, good. But, that was a conversation not only with those that are operating it, but also others that have operated them before to find out, is this the right, equipment to go with? The consistency between the field house and the stadium are important.
Yes.
So we feel pretty comfortable. And OAK, who does all this work for
Yes.
us, they were like, you're almost 80% of the boards in Michigan are, exterior boards are different.
Anyone else have any other questions or comments?
Add anything to this, Evan?
Video?
No, I think the biggest point is our kids are gonna be producing content, and with the content, the same software, there'll be advantages. It's not where it will be. You know, other schools have more developed. Other schools have more developed programs, but if we went another direction than Daktronics, it would really complicate things for teaching, learning, and student side of production.
And Daktronics does provide an entire, curriculum for students that is just available for us. If it's the direction we go, it's, I'd say their boards, but it would be, but their software, so it's a whole nother level of curriculum also for the kids. To take them from Eagle Eye News to maybe a second tier, which is something I know Amy, Jordan, myself, Mr. Szymanski at the high school, Joe Szymanski also, about what the next step is for our kids to really help drive this content.
No, will there also be some consideration for advertising revenue? Have we knocked that out?
We already have that system created.
Yeah,
Okay.
is that what you mean by consideration?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the,
just-
yeah, we have a whole package of what you can get, what you get out of that, whether it's, for the game, number of games,
Right.
how many minutes, how many times it rotates, similar to,
but we're open to
Aside.
that, right? We're open to that as a,
yes,
okay,
yeah, we've been doing that for
Right.
years. But a lot of times it used to all be in programs,
right,
right?
Yeah.
And one thing we really shied away from is even on, you know, when they would put a sign on the fence, we've made them take it down.
Sure.
Because that's a permanent sign, and that's been a very interesting conversation.
For years.
But I'm pretty adamant about it.
How many people can we seat there? Remember?
Is it 11?
How many can we get in the field house? 3,000?
Depends, it seats 3,700,
So
the field house, but standing room only, you can get close to 4,500.
Should we bump our advertising costs up?
Depends on the number of activities between track and, you know, the field house, you have volleyball, boys and girls, you have basketball, boys and girls. So it's
That's
a
true.
little bit competitive cheers in there, you have dance that's in there, it's a little bit different. When you have, I mean, you have field hockey, but you could very well have flag football coming up for the girls, which would be most likely in the fall. And then you have, football and track and field. But the answer to your question could very well be a different tier, we just haven't gotten to that point yet because it doesn't look like that yet.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Pat.
Okay, let's go on to Park Elementary parking lot.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have a conversation about the Park Elementary parking lot, so I'm gonna ask, so here's, I think you're okay with those. Here is Park Elementary, we're up here. Here's Park, the building, this is the main entrance to Park, when you walk in here, main entrance, here's their new, gym at Park Elementary that you can see through the window. Here's the current parking lot, we're restructuring the parking lot. Enter in here, come back around, changing the parking layout, marquee sign goes here, so it's clear, their new marquee signs will match the rest of the district. We've had conversations, this dotted line here, in this section here, is actually part of Hughes Park. It is beyond what we considered left field on this field here, this is field number 2. One is by us, and it was 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is field 2, and then in this area here is green space, there's another field down here. If you go out there, I mean, it's kind of cold, but it's out here. We've had conversations with the city about, can we put additional parking for Park Elementary here? You've seen this design before, 2 years ago, probably. I don't know if you were at the meeting, I think you two were, I don't know, it was right about that time. But this is an additional, there's additional 35 spots, it increases the queue to come out from here, so the line for pickup, drop off and pickup keeps them off Park Street. I wanna say Park Avenue, but it's really Park Street. And it goes from here. There have been some challenges with the city about getting maybe not deeded access, but right of way to put that there from maintaining the parking, which we would do. We're trying to finalize that work with the city, but we're getting closer to the ground thawing, and that's us having to do this work. Pat's working with the city also, having conversations about, they wanna be able to use it at all times. And the answer would be no. During school hours, it's only for school, but outside of that, it would be open. What we wanna stay away from is similar to what you'd see at the early childhood center, where the parking lot is full of all these people walking or playing pickleball at early childhood. Here, this would be for school. Now, when they traditionally have baseball, softball, Wednesday night sports, or there's weekend tournaments, then use this field. It gives them access, quite frankly, from a handicap situation closer to these fields. They would look at putting a path along here so that there's parking here outside of those school hours. I guess what I'm looking for is how much patience do you want us to have with the city? We're getting close to a point that if they can't land this plane, then we're gonna circle around and go to a different airport. I know that's the only way I can give an analogy. I know I'm saying this to you, and Pat knows, it's time to fish or cut bait, with this. If they can't do it, then we'll scrap this idea, keep the parking where it is. It does increase parking still, because if you remember, this property right here used to be a house and now it's green space, so it does increase, I guess it's down here. So we moved the driveway, so we have increased some parking. It does limit the parking, the drop off and pickup. But if we can win this, it's good, we think it's good for the city. The city had mentioned, if we take this space, will we give them other space? And my argument was, we already did with your non-motorized pathway, that we put by the high school campus. So you may
We're
remember
doing a
those
big favor
times.
by giving them a whole bunch of parking for
Right,
all summer long doing softball.
Yeah, it doesn't,
Feels-
that's not the same logic that they're, but yeah.
So what was their response to that? To motorized?
One of them said that's a good point. I don't have conversations with their board, and I'm talking with their city manager. Pat is talking with their planner. So we're having conversations about what we feel. I'm just to the point, if they say, you know what, we need this, this, and this, and the answer is, I'm sorry, I think we scrap it, and then it goes back to, now we have another $1 million, we can do something else. Right? I mean,
It's
that's.
to the point you walk away and do what we need to do.
Yeah, and I mean, then we can put a board 4 times the size, then we're not doing that, but I'm just saying, but then it goes back to, now you have money to do other projects. We feel like this is part of the scope, we had planned on this, you've seen this drawing for, I mean, this drawing's been there for 2+ years. I want, quite frankly, I think, hopefully the board trusts the work that we've done from the planning of this, but hopefully, maybe just also, if we have to walk away, we might just, we do need this to be a safety issue for our kids. I can't have people just driving in that we're not sure, that wanna go play softball or walk their dog or go play in the park. There are other lots for that. They're welcome, quite frankly, to park in our administration building lot. But when kids are involved, we try to keep people away from it.
Got a whole huge park right there.
We do.
And this isn't taking up that field, right? You're
It's not touching the
It's
field.
just the space that's
It's vacant
vacant.
space.
People literally park here
Yeah.
all the time.
They park on the
They
grass.
park,
Yeah.
this area is full of cars
Yeah.
at night. Their maintenance department
Probably hates it.
loves our idea.
Yeah, they
Love,
do.
love hates that
It
they
makes-
park there, loves our idea.
Yes,
Yeah.
makes this so much better because when the guy goes through there to mow, it almost bounces them off all the time because there's ruts. So
So obviously, we would plow it and we would.
we
do all
would
that.
maintain it, resurface it, patch it, whatever needed to be done, we would take care of it, just like our other parking lots.
Seems like they should be coming to us.
It is a win-win for them.
It is, because of it's a substantial cost, because we're proposing to put the, water storage underground, similar to the, field house, you saw those big yellow things, it's the same thing here. We could put them in a catch basin, you can see the kind of the oval thing in the bottom left-hand corner, looks almost like a skateboard type look, but the problem with that is it's kind of really changes the area there, so we propose to put the water, underneath, which it would be cheaper to not. However, the long-term effects of that from erosion standpoint, we think would be better. It's just long-term a better idea.
So what are we looking for from the board? Just an
I'm
acknowledgement?
looking for, I don't need you to approve
Right.
anything other than the ability to walk away with it.
Okay,
No, we're like taxpayers here in town, we can give them our 3 minutes if we wanted.
Yeah.
you guys are paying those extra taxes that we don't pay in Georgetown and Jamestown, so you should get something for it.
The sandwich board.
No, I totally
Left.
trust all that they've
Oh,
done.
yeah.
So we have a good enough relationship
Yeah.
with the city that it makes too much sense to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, when we designed this initially, and we put these boards up 2 years ago, you can see it was
Yeah.
designed there. You can maybe see the look of the field, what it looks like there.
Oh.
It doesn't take all the space in there, cause there's some big trees in there we try to keep.
Well, yeah, we didn't deal with this, what was the whole tennis court?
Yep.
Pickleball.
Yep.
Did they change their tune? Like, was it like, yeah, we can do this, now we can't, kind of thing? Or is it kind of just
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it changes when, there's a new city manager than when we first did this. They both did great work. This is nothing new with them, but there's some change. There could be new commissioners on the board that look at it differently. I think they wanted to do a swap for property, and I think our argument was, we swapped a lot more property than that from the school system to the city, and we even helped pay for
Pay
that.
for
anyway.
that,
That's a whole other
yes,
issue.
yes.
We could ask them to help pay for it too, but that's not part of it. We'll have conversations. I did tell them that if we don't get, they have a commission meeting tomorrow night. I'm gonna try to make that, I told them by the end of the week, we have to figure this out, because we can't, what we're not gonna do is put in the parking lot that on park property, and then they come back in the middle of July and say, okay, you can do it now, like, it's too late. It's all been designed from an engineering standpoint, it's ready to go. It's just that, it's not a deeded access, it would be a, easement, agreement. So,
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Van Jack. Now let's go to the orchestra trip request.
They wanna go on a trip, it's on your thing, I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me, I know it's here. Yeah, to Disney, to Orlando. So, similar to other trip requests, we bring them to the board at the work session. I don't know if there's questions you may have. Just, this is going, next March. I'm sorry, that's when they applied. It's going next spring break.
Spring break, yeah.
Spring break.
They do this every 4 years for the last.
That sounds about right.
Perfect.
Any questions?
Do you want a chaperone? I'll let them know you're interested.
I do, because my child might go.
Looks like we have one. Too late, it's recorded.
Okay, then we will go on to the 1,000 and 2,000 policy review.
All right, before we get into the policy review, I'd like to update the board. I do want to thank Dawn, Nick, and Joy, a lot of time on policy. We had several We had about 4.5 hours of webinars, initially. We had another 2+ hour meeting. We're not quite done bringing everything to the board, but I wanna go through a timeline that we kind of drafted, and kind of gone back and forth. So before we get into the policy, I wanna talk about the transition of getting there. And then I'm gonna try to go through the 1000s and 2000s. There are 5 series of policies to review, the 1000s through the 5000s. There are not 1,000 of each policies, but those are the series that we go through. This is a draft of a plan. If you can see, so the idea is that at tonight's work session to review the 1000s and the 2000s, and that shouldn't take long at all. There's maybe about 25 to 30 recommended changes that the policy committee has already reviewed, but we cannot bring those to the board until the board sees all the recommendations for what is added or deleted or options that they chose. The next work session, which would be the end of April, we'd like to bring the 3000s and the 5000s, as well as policy 5207, which is the anti-bullying policy. That is the only requirement by statute to have its own public hearing. So that will go, we would have those policies reviewed. The 3000s and the 5000s are quite a bit. We're not quite, I think we're done with the 3s and the 5s, we're not done with the 4s, if I recall. But there's a couple things that we still want to address, but we have time for the policy committee to reconvene in the middle of April to get those to the full board. Then on the May 8th board meeting, regular board meeting, we would ask for a resolution from the board to have a hearing for policy 5207. So at the meeting on May 8th, I would ask the board to approve a resolution that will call for a hearing on policy 5207, and that would take place at the May work session. So May 8th, the board passes a resolution, we have the hearing on May 19th. At the beginning, not at the beginning of the meeting, but when we get into that action item. So similar in the past, we do that with the budget, we've done it with the others that have to have a hearing, sex ed advisory, when they make changes, there's a hearing. We'll have public comment in the beginning of the meeting, we'll do some action items, then when we get to that portion, we'll open up public comment again, if people want to address this policy and this policy only. Then the board will have the hearing at that point. In that work session, we then review series 4000 and the 5207 again. Because then after public comment, if nobody makes public comment, or somebody does, and the board wants to make adjustments, you can do that with that policy. That will get us through that'll get us through 4000s also. Then at the June 12 board meeting, we ask the board to take a resolution to adopt all the policies that go into effect July 1. Does that make sense? Questions? I know the policy committee has seen this before. Questions from board members that may not have seen this timeline. Okay, so as a review of policy, so here's what it will look like, and I'm not gonna go through every policy word for word. I want to so bad right now, but Robin's like, don't do it. So I do have them all tabbed. Let me rephrase that. Robin tabbed them all for me. They are all here. So you can open your packet. I'm just gonna go through the very first policy. I'm just gonna go through a couple examples, then I'm gonna ask you to look at them. Policy, it's in the 1100s. 1101 is the general policy statement. If you go to the second page, in blue, I don't know what color it is on yours, is it blue?
Yes.
In blue, it's where we would put our mission statement. That is our mission statement. You're welcome to approve this or not approve this. You don't do it tonight, you won't do it till June, but we took it right from what our mission statement is. So we didn't change anything, go from there. If you look at policy in the 1300s, there's 1301. On the second side, it talks about what is defined as district, and that is Hudsonville Public Schools. I do want to draw a note to that 1401 to definition of superintendent. If you would look closely at the superintendent, it means the superintendent of schools. Where permitted by law, superintendent also means the superintendent designee. So there are things in policy that you might say, do you do that? Or does one of your designees? By definition, the superintendent can designate somebody to do this. You go to the 2100s. So now, that's all the thousands. So I just reviewed all the 1000 series. Make sense? That quick.
Doing a
If
good
you-
job.
If you go to the 2000 series, now we're at 2101, the rules of the board and board members. If you look all the way bottom about employee teachers, you can see the option that was chosen is option 3. Everything else was stricken.
Can I just make one overall comment too? So, for most of you who've gone through this before, if there aren't choices, it's usually because there are laws that require the actual policy. Even though there are certain things that we can choose, I think we all noted that at the very bottom of each one of these policies, you have your citation of either federal or state law. So again, some of this, you sort of feel like you don't have a lot of choices, but in some respects, that's okay, because number one, it would be hard to make all these choices, and number two, the law is the law. So if you hadn't gone through them with that in mind, hopefully that will help you understand why some of this we aren't reading word for word.
Yeah. And as much as you like, we wanna change this, or we want this out of here, there are some that we've made some changes based on, our current policy, maybe with some other districts. We spent some time looking at, Jennison has transitioned to Troon, Granville just transitioned to Troon, Forest Hills has transitioned, so we've also had conversation with them about what it looks like. Grand Haven has transitioned to Troon. The nice thing about transitioning, or being with Troon, and we've talked about this already, twofold is number one, from a legal standpoint, these policies drafted by them, approved by our board, have backing from their legal services. So if you look at Neola, if we have something, we would have to go back to Neola's attorneys or Ohio's attorneys to address this. Now, working with Troon as much as we do, they're the ones, they don't have to spend 15 minutes or half an hour, and I say that because everything's built in 15-minute increments, to look up your policy and to see how they need to respond to a concern where they have their policies going from there. There was a question that was raised, and I thought we addressed this, I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter, that we have, are there policies in here that are there policies that we have that will not be in our new policy manual? And I think, I talked to 3 different districts that all said, we haven't found any yet. They said, and Troon's been doing this now for a few years, so that, others would have found it. They have over 150, districts that are using their services. They would have found policies, that were missing. So we feel like we're in good shape by shifting to all of these. Questions? Mr. DeWitt, looked like you had a question.
You answered it, well, yeah. Right on that.
Wow.
I'm gonna skip almost all of them. The only thing I will ask is, we are not asking you to approve these tonight. So if I fly through these and you're like, I wanted you to explain what we're doing, so that even if you're like, I'm gonna go home and look at these in the next, well, until June 12th, right? So I would ask that you try to look through these, and if you have questions, let me know. You can ask any one of the committee members if you wanna ask them. I do wanna shift your attention maybe to, these aren't bait stamps, so I'm gonna try to find a policy. I know you highlighted it, Robin, I told you to do it in green. I gotta find it.
Can I ask you a question while you're looking?
Yes.
So, so we have a policy manual and we have administrative guidelines.
Yes.
Is this replacing just the policy?
No.
Manual, this is everything.
Guidelines, we go from 265 guidelines to 40.
Okay.
There's not very many guidelines. And also, we also have access to their, student handbook and staff handbook that models the policy, it follows the policies and the guidelines. So,
Cause right now it's, go on, sorry.
well, right now, we've got, our handbook is created, well, our staff handbook was created by Ann and her department. Our student handbook was created by our administrators, and we have to make sure it doesn't contradict policy. It's a lot easier for them to say, here's a sample, now just, if you wanna tweak it, but it won't conflict. So they'll give you ideas too of how not to do that with the staff.
Good. Okay.
If you can go to policy 2405, I know it's way down there.
Say it again?
2405. You'll see, there's section A, election of officers, then you'll see, B is stricken. And the reason we struck it is because we don't need that policy in there, but you see how it says reserved and highlighted? So the reason that is highlighted as reserved is because it holds the placekeeper for B in that policy. So later in the policy, there might be a D1. If we remove B, everything jumps up and it's referenced somewhere else in the policy guideline. So if you see the word reserved, all that means is when we're done, that stricken language disappears and it says reserved because we wanna maintain the numerical system and numbering system for future. If an entire policy is not taken and it's not the last policy in the series, so I'm gonna say that again, if a policy is not taken and is not the last policy in the series, it will say at the top of the policy, intentionally left blank, because then the numbering system for the rest. If it is the last policy in the series, then you can just delete it. You with me? Okay, so I know the policy committee's been through this, but for those that haven't reviewed them. So, I am not gonna go through the rest of these. Anywhere you see highlighted in blue, you'll see if it says optional, and then you see what's written there, that means the optional language was chosen. If it says optional and there's stuff that are crossed off, you'll see it. You'll see names, you'll see maybe titles that are put in different areas. If you have questions, let me know.
Are there any like high-level substantive?
There will be in the next
After this.
series, not in these two.
There was a policy implementation checklist.
Yeah.
That was really helpful to have in front of you, eventually.
I don't think you need them for the ones and twos.
The ones and twos are like really simple. When you get to the 3/4, there's a lot, but it's like every policy with like the cliff notes of this is what's changing, so you're not scrolling through page after page, you kinda know where to hone in on.
Yeah, that's a good point. You'll get that with the next update, that'll come through. The 4,000s are really the deepest dive. So we put those as a standalone for the last update.
Okay, anybody have any questions on 1,000 and 2,000 policy review?
And we're fully prepared to answer these. If we get to the 3s and 5s and you're like, I have a question on the 2s, we can easily go back. I would encourage you, we will not have multiple readings of policies anymore. It's one reading, and going from there. So when we get to that last one, really in that last May work session, hopefully you've had reviewed them all and you understand the process. There's a few more deep dives that we have. There's some philosophy things I think the board's gonna wanna tackle on a couple things that will be a conversation piece on the board.
I'd like to thank Nick and Dawn and Joy for their time. This is a lot part of the most time that we've had in the subcommittee. So I'd like to thank the staff also for all of your work for the different subcommittees. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, so like, I thought this was really smooth actually, how it went, because of all the work that the cabinet and Robin in particular have done, and the other staff you looped in, so no, thank you so much for the pre-work you did on these.
And the thing that was helpful, in addition to the way Robin set it up, but if there was a specific question about something more related to HR, then Robin would go and say, okay, what have we been doing? And what is your input on this particular item? So it was helpful to know that we were trying to follow as much as possible what we currently have, understanding we could do some tweaking if that was an option. So it was
Yeah,
good
the
input.
Cabinet was very instrumental in a lot of these deep dives in these policies, high school administration. There were some other people involved outside of cabinet, so it was a team effort.
You know, we had a finance subcommittee meeting that we had just a wonderful meeting, I thought. Anyway, it was suggested to me a couple of meetings ago by one of the board members, Andrew, that I also asked for comments from the staff also. So I'm gonna start with Pat, and I'm gonna give any comments.
Well, I just, thank you for your time, that deep dive with the filter first, and I just would like to acknowledge again, Lee's work on that. Can't be said enough. They were out, he and his staff are out at 4:30 before work, doing inventories on these things. I didn't join them on all those, I did do the kickoff, and, it was, just, thanks for his work, it's gonna be great for kids, obviously his added measure of protection, and I can't thank him enough for all his work. Thank you.
Mandy?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Okay, Ann?
I just would, update everybody that we're starting the process of staffing the restructure, and, Amy and Mandy have started, interviews and placements of certain people, and then hopefully by spring break, we'll have all the positions filled and placed, and maybe bring some buildings, anxiety down. I'd like to, if they know or don't know the person, they'll know, it's all internal, but still, so, it's just been really good, exciting work.
Thank you. Amy?
Yeah, just adding on, certainly listening to the PBIS presentation this evening and from our building administrators and teachers. This is a tough time of year from a behavior standpoint, but it's also really, our teachers are so passionate about student success behaviorally and academically, and as we enter into testing season, teachers carry a lot, and I'm super thankful for their passion around trying to prepare students for testing season. It's a lot, so that's what we're really gearing up for at this point, and super thankful for our teachers and how they prepare kids in meaningful ways, not just for the test, but really for lifelong, so.
Thank you, Dr. Vanderjagt.
Yeah, so you get a lot of updates from me on a weekly basis. If there are certain areas that you're asking for more information or clarity, can you please let me know, because I never know. I send those out, and I think some of you read them, I have no idea, so, but let me know if there's certain areas that you're interested in hearing more about. I just wanna appreciate our staff, not only the ones that were here tonight. It is, as Mrs. Taylor said, it's an interesting time. We have, 7 more days until spring break to, I know I'm counting down, I know the kids are counting down. And it's just, and then we get into graduation, right? We get fired up about graduation. I know Pat and I are doing a lot of work on what our future desires of the district from a community standpoint, from a staffing standpoint. What do people see they need and want from the district? So I just appreciate your support as we move forward.
Thank you. Nick?
Yeah, I just want to thank Mandy again for putting the report together. I know I have to ask you a lot of questions in that category. It's important to me, and I just think it's one of the things we hear a lot from the community and from the teachers, and it's helpful to be able to look at the data and say, hey, there's some good things, and so thank you for that. And just want to make sure that the teachers are supported, and hopefully if they can see some of this data too, not even just in their building, but to say, hey, look at how we compare to other buildings, that would maybe give them some comfort as well as they're in the thick of it. I just think that parenting kids and how each child is different, each class and each building is different. So thanks for compiling and reporting on it.
Just well done, well prepared tonight, thorough, pushing the district forward. So just, again, really nice job to the whole team. And wish everybody a restful spring break.
Glad to see this again. And just, it's always fascinating to me, because again, we're always above the state and county level, that doesn't change. But yet, very interesting to see some trends are similar across the board. And so, when you're talking to other people, there are people in the districts we don't even see on a regular basis, and we know they're going through some of the same things, and parents talk about that and say, gosh, is that just our district? It's like, no, it's not. And, again, we're all working towards the same goal of, yes, educating our children, but it's also the whole child, because the whole child needs to be educated to be healthy, contributing members of society. So, thank you for that work.
Barb?
Thank you, Mandy, and your team for the presentation. I enjoyed it. I know I asked questions, but I think they were very well prepared. Joy, Dawn, and Nick, thank you for your work on the policy subcommittee. I know you spent a lot of time, and Dr. Vanderjagt, thank you for laying out the process, and thank you for not going in detail over those policies. The changes I looked at,
I've done them 3 or 4
they
times
actually are
already,
quite
so
simple, so I thank you for that.
Andrew?
Yeah, just echo the sentiment said previously. Great presentation. Thanks for pulling all that together. Very helpful, and every time we hear from folks, it's always enlightening and most of the news, so that's great. Thank you for the members of the finance subcommittee for all the work we put in. Thank you, Dr. Vanderjagt and Pat, for all the finance information that we've shared and discussed. Appreciate all of that. And Doug, your updates we read them, if we don't respond, because we don't have questions. No, seriously,
Oh, we read them.
I mean, that. It's really helpful, I
Yeah.
appreciate your.
You don't hear from us because it's like, wow, I got all this information.
Absolutely.
And I don't need, so don't start all emails.
That's why.
No,
That's why I said,
no.
you get enough emails and text messages,
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sure, you don't need me
Well,
to
it might
say.
take-
Friday rolls around.
I might take spring break off, just so you know.
Good, that's good.
It's probably soon.
Thank you all, appreciate it, yeah, have a great spring.
Yeah, I've been enjoying getting to know, all the cabinet members, still you, but, yeah, it's been really, really great. I've appreciated that. Thank you for taking the time. And I also went to see Shrek.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
What
So,
night did you go?
I went on Sunday.
It was the only performance that nobody, not, at least 2 people weren't sick. It was on Sunday. Every performance until Sunday had at least 2 people that, I'm sorry I interrupted your.
No.
But that was the only performance that they didn't have 2 people that were sick.
Though,
Did a
did
great
they, though had someone was singing for Lord Farquaad, like in his place, I think, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Cause you were there, I saw
Yeah.
you there at the same
Yeah,
performance.
so,
Crazy.
so he was,
I know, I was like, is that?
he was out on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And then came back for a little bit. So Will stood in on Thursday and had to have the script, because it's a big part.
Yes, he
and it's
apparently carried a
huge.
book of how
Yeah,
to
he
be a
had a
prince.
book, they
or-
decorated the book,
Yeah.
and he took the whole day out of class to get ready for it, cause it's not
Right.
just singing or words, it's which way you looking when you say it,
Right.
and where are you on stage, and all of that stuff. So it was quite a production with, when you only do it one weekend, you traditionally don't have understudies. The only ones that really had it alternating were the Baby Shrek.
Sure.
So,
It was
it's good.
very well done. I'm very grateful to Deb Andre for the tickets and encouraging us to come, and she
Yeah.
just obviously is a star, in what she does too, so it's really great.
I would like to recognize the faithfulness of our visitor, Mike. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
And anyway, thank you all, board and staff, for everything that you're doing. It's well, really appreciated. And I know we've dealt with a lot of stuff over the last 3 months, but very, very good job, so thank you. At this point, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So,
Andrew,